I really like playing board games, obviously. That's why I decided to make a TV show about it. Sometimes you have the box game and you go, this is great, this is the experience I want. And sometimes you go, maybe I can add something to this. And to talk about that discussion, I've got Prospect, the technical director of this show.
Yeah, I agree, but I also disagree. This is a conversation we've had a couple of times. I'm going to dive straight into the expansion argument. Obviously, a lot of games have expansions. I like getting the most out of the game before you can add the expansion. But I think we've talked about how expansions can upgrade games in different ways.
Yeah, so a lot of games, expansions are different. So sometimes they are just more of the same. So more of the same cards, more of the same mechanics, just give it a bit more variability, which can be great if you're playing a game a few times. Sometimes they're adding new mechanics, different styles. These set dressings, we actually have some good examples. So Sagrada, that's adding 5 or 6 players. So sometimes they add new players, and a lot of games that's bad because it makes the game longer, more downtime. But if it's at the same time, like Quacks and Sagrada, it's the time it adds is minimal, so that's good because it means your group of 5 can play that game now. Other stuff is like Root is adding new factions, or like Jude is adding new mechanics that can change the game for better or worse sometimes.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. With so many games and so few time to play that we end up games getting to the table X amount of times. And I like to try and get the most out of a game before thinking, oh, this needs more. But I must admit that there are definitely expansions that I like. I've already bought some expansions for Clank, just because they're easy. Clank have a really nice thing where, as well as like full expansions that add extra board, extra card, extra rules, extra mechanics, they also have just like $20 you can buy a new board. And all of a sudden you're not reinventing the game. You're not even really sort of going to the next chapter. You're just changing things up a bit, and that's kind of nice. I like those kind of things.
Well, the good thing about not all of them, but a lot of expansions is you can then fit it into the base box. So you can have more game at the same size because after a while, the size of the collection starts becoming an issue. But when we talk about the box itself, there is a lot of organizers, whether that's third-party stuff like folded space insert, which are sort of like foam cutouts. There's wooden ones. You can 3D print your own ones.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten into a lot of plastic. Like most of my games are sleeved. I think I've sleeved every game that we play except for Deception, which is like 200 cards and it doesn't get to the table that often.
Well, I think that comes from also being Magic players for a long time. Is that the norm of that game is you're sleeving your cards. Often they're valuable, but also after a while you start.
It's just nicer.
Yeah, it actually is not a good experience to shuffle unsleeved cards. It just feels, I don't want to do that.
And for me, it becomes an organisation thing. So I like how sleeved cards fit in the box better than unsleeved cards. I like how they sit on the table better.
It does protect the cards as well.
Yeah, and it's also that tangible element of board games. I feel like it enhances it a little bit.
Well, the organisers as well as a lot of things is sometimes you open a box and there's just lots of bags, lots of pieces.
Yes.
The organisers, make it clear what it is, but often it also means you go, okay, here's this, here's yours, here's it. Oh, we're set up, which would have taken 10 minutes, now takes 2 minutes. It makes it a lot more accessible and faster to the table.
Chinatown was a great example of that. Chinatown, the box insert that it comes with is horrible. It barely even fits back in it doesn't fit back all if you sleeve the cards, but it's got 2 little troughs, one that's big enough for all the pieces and one that's not quite big enough for the cards. So it's just like any game that comes with a deck of cards, once you unwrap it, they're just everywhere. But Chinatown was one of the games on my list of things that I printed inserts for, and now everything's got its own little plastic box. Everything fits in perfectly and neatly down to the millimeter. And when everyone gets their little chits for the game, they all got their own little box to get it out of with, and it's just for me that's a big upgrade. That's scratching that organisation.
Sort of neat and organisation.
Yeah.
And it does help get stuff to the table. There is also, and I'm going to bring out, this is Warp's Edge, which is a bag building game, but Quacks is the same thing. It comes with cardboard little tokens you're pulling out of the bag. You can get little coin capsules, which then make a nice little. You have that more, and when you're going in, it just feels a little bit more of a nice tactile experience.
I was going to say, for me, that segues nicely into upgrading pieces, because if you're going from the little cardboard pieces to these nice little plastic pieces, then when we're talking about upgrading games, you can do that with other games as well. Like, I know Scythe has a specific retail version where you can buy metal tokens instead of the cardboard ones that come with.
Yeah,
But you don't even necessarily need to do that. Like I've got. When I bought one of the Dominion expansions, it came with a bunch of nice little metal things, but they're generic. They say 1, 2, and 5. You can use them for lots of different games to make it a little bit more a nicer experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who buy the metal coins for the use of a bunch of games, or they buy like nice sort of poker style chips that don't look like casino chips, just a bit more aesthetically pleasing. So they use those for a lot of games. And you know, even stuff like people upgrading dice. We talked about Magic earlier. Like there's the aesthetic upgrades that people do in Magic in terms of like, oh, I'm going to have a foil or alternative art stuff. Which obviously is a big selling point now with their secret layers. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of things you can do to enhance the game without changing the gameplay, but it will still enhances your experience. And in the same fashion, you don't need to do it.
I mean, that depends on yourself.
I do think it does add to the game experience. How much is going to depend on each person. But I mean, I also feel like if you play High Society without sleeves, you're still going to have a good time because it's a good game. You know, a lot of games don't use standees rather than miniatures. You know, maybe you're a really big fan of miniatures and that's going to really sell it to you. If you don't care about miniatures, the gameplay is the same, then the standees are going to be A-okay.
Yeah. There's also, it doesn't always go to plan as well. It's like, as I was sharing with you recently, I was trying to modify some textures to create the perfect little stamp for roll and write games. And I've tested it. I played Hadrian's Wall twice with my little stampy textures. Added almost nothing to the game. I think I've got to go back to pen. So, but it was an exercise in trying to upgrade my game in a different and new way that I hadn't really seen out there. But yeah, that one didn't go so well.
Yeah, I mean, when you sent me that, I'm like, that is so stupid. Especially because a lot of roll and write, you have to like write a number and stuff like that, or if you're playing cartographers, you're drawing the little maps. So the pens are basically, you just ruined a bunch of pens. But whatever, who cares? But yeah, there's certainly a lot of ways you can upgrade games. And how much is sort of depends on you. That's a whole, like 3D printing, as we're sort of seeing, is a whole another hobby. That people are really invested in. And
it's a good one though. Highly recommend.
But like, you've started designing your own inserts, but there's also plenty that you can have online. So if you're
I've printed inserts for I think it was like somewhere between 9 games now, something like that, and 2 of those were things I did myself. The other 7 were things I found online. So people are into this. People have found a lot of things, and you don't have to go to the effort to do all the designing. You just have to go to the effort to wait 9 hours for a 3D print to come out and then put it in the box.
There's also a lot of people on, our marketplace like Etsy who have done their own sort of custom game pieces. That different miniatures or meeples or stickers for meeples or one. Like there's a whole huge range you can customize your games to your heart's content, either being crafty or not being crafty. Obviously, if you're not being crafty, you're probably spending a little bit more money, but that's okay. And you can really sort of change that game experience just a little bit, from a little bit to a lot.
Yeah.
So.